All right, today we're going to talk about calculating mass. Mass is calculated by milliamperes per second. More specifically, today we're going to talk about converting milliseconds to seconds because most of our X-ray images are taken in milliseconds. 1 second equals 1,000 milliseconds. So here we can see that this is the length of 1 second. This is the length of 1 millisecond, which is much smaller than 1 second. So it would take us 1,000 milliseconds to get 1 second. So how do we get from seconds to milliseconds? You have to multiply it by 1,000. So in this example, we have 2 seconds, and we want to convert it to milliseconds. So we need to multiply 2 times 1,000. There's two ways we can do that. We can either do it long multiplication, where we have 1,000 multiplied by 2. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 1 is 2. And so that would be 2,000 milliseconds. The other way we can do this is we can just move the decimal place over 3 points. So here we have 2.0. If we move the decimal place 3, 1, 2, 3, put that decimal there, fill in the zeros, we're now left with 2,000. So 2 seconds equals 2,000 milliseconds. Let's do another example. So let's go from seconds to milliseconds, but we'll start with 0.5 seconds. So if we do the long multiplication way, we're going to have 1,000 times 0.5. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 1 is 1. Then we're going to resolve the 0, so we have to add our first 0. 0 times 0 is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. 0 times 1 is 0. Add all of this together. So that's going to be 5,000. But we have the decimal point here, so we have to resolve that decimal point, which means we move it over 1. So our answer is 500 milliseconds. So that's the long multiplication way. We can also just take 0.5 seconds and move the decimal place over 3 times. Put the decimal there, fill in our zeros, which again is 500. More often than not, we're going to be converting from milliseconds to seconds because our X-ray machines typically shoot exams in milliseconds, but we have to calculate mass using full seconds. So how do we go from milliseconds to seconds? We're going to start with 2 milliseconds. In order to go from milliseconds to seconds, we have to divide by 1,000. So first, let's do our long division. We have 1,000 divided by 2. 1,000 does not go into 2, so we're going to add a decimal point. Add a 0 there. 0 times 1,000 is 0. It's still not enough, so we add another 0. 0 times 1,000 is not enough. Add another 0. Now we have 1,000 can go into 2,000 2 times. So that means 2 milliseconds equals 0.002 seconds. So that's the long division way. If we wanted to do the shorthand way, we can take 2 milliseconds and just move the decimal place over 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Add the decimal there, 0, 0. So 2 milliseconds is 0.002 seconds. All right, let's do another sample problem. So here we'll start with 5,000 milliseconds. If we do long division, we'll have 1,000 divided by 5,000. 1,000 goes into 5,000 5 times, so the answer is 5 seconds. If we want to just move the decimal place over, we have 5,000. Move the decimal place over 3. 1, 2, 3. So that's now a decimal point. So we will have 5 seconds. So 5,000 milliseconds equals 5 seconds. So now we know how to convert from seconds to milliseconds and then milliseconds to seconds. Let's talk about how we actually calculate mass. I really like this triangle theory. I think this is easy for my lizard brain. The way that this triangle works whenever we're trying to calculate mass is we'll be given two values. It's really easy for us to solve the third. So for example, if we have mA and time and we want to calculate mass, all you have to do is multiply these two together. So mA times seconds equals mass. Now, let's say you're given 2 points, you're given mass and mA, and they want you to calculate time. You just take mass and divide it by mA. So because mass is above mA, you're going to divide mass and mA. If they give you the other two, they give you mass and seconds or time, and they want you to calculate mA. Again, you'll just divide mass by seconds, and that'll get you mA. So let's do a couple sample problems so you know what I'm talking about. So here's our problem. What is the mass when using 100 mA and an exposure time of 2 seconds? So let's put in the values that we know. We know 100 mA, so we're going to put 100 here. We have time, which is 2 seconds. And they want us to calculate for mass, which is in this triangle here. So like I said previously, whenever we're trying to figure out this top value, we just need to multiply these two values down here. So we'll have 100 mA times 2, 2 times 0, 0, 2 times 0, 0, 2 times 1 is 2. And so our answer will be 200 mass. 200 mass. Oh, we love this triangle. All right, let's do another problem. What is the mA when using 60 mass and an exposure time of 0.5 seconds? So fill in our known variables. We have 60 mass. We have 0.5 seconds. And we're trying to calculate for mA. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to divide 60 by 0.5. I'm not a super fan of dividing by fractions, so what I like to do is just make everything a whole number. So here we have 60 mass, here we have 0.5 seconds. I don't like this 0.5, so I'm just going to multiply both sides by 10. For me, that's just easier. It's going to be 600 times 5. So now we'll have 600 mass and 5 seconds. All right, so let's do our long division. We'll have 5 divided by 600. 5 goes into 6 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. 6 minus 5 is 1. Carry down this 0. 5 goes into 10 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 minus 10 is 0. Drop the other 0, and then 0 times 5 equals 0. So the answer is 120 mA times 0.5 seconds equals 60 mass. All right, this next problem says, what is the exposure time when using 30 mass and 150 mA? So we'll put in our 30 mass, 150 mA, and we're trying to calculate exposure time right here. So we're going to take 30 mass, divide it by 150. So 150 divided by 30. 150 does not go into 30, so we need to add a decimal. So 130 can go into 300 two times. 2 times 150 is 300. It's a 0. So our answer is 0.2 seconds. Now, if your instructor is anything like me, they're going to give you tricky problems like this. So this question asks, what is the mass when using 400 mA and an exposure time of 200 milliseconds? So let's put in our known values. First, we have 400 mA. We're trying to solve for mass, so we're trying to figure out this portion of our triangle, but they gave us 200 milliseconds. This milliseconds is really tricky. We have to convert this 200 milliseconds into seconds. We can't just put 200 here and solve it. If we did, that would get us, I don't know, milliamps per millisecond, mAs, and we don't do mAs in radiography, so I don't know what that is. So let's erase all of that. And we have to convert this milliseconds to seconds. The way that we can do that is we can either divide it. So we'll take 1000 divided by 200. 1000 does not go into 200, so we need to add another 0. 1000 can go into 2000 two times. That's 2000 equals 0. So the answer is 0.2 seconds. So 200 milliseconds equals 0.2 seconds. We can also do it the easy method by just moving the decimal place over. So here we have 200. Let's move the decimal place over 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So that leaves us with 0.2. So again, that's a different way that we can do it. So now that we have the values that we need, let's go ahead and solve for mass. Because we have mA and time, we can just multiply. So we'll have 400 times 0.2. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 4 is 8. Go down to the next row. 0 times 0 is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. 0 times 4 is 0. Add that together, gives us 800. We need to resolve this one decimal place, so we need to move a decimal place right here, and that gives us our answer of 80 mass. So 400 mA at 200 milliseconds equals 80 mass. The last problem that we'll do is the trickiest out of all of them so far. So what is the exposure time in milliseconds when using 75 mass and 250 mA? Let's start putting in our values. So 75 mass, 250 mA, and we're trying to solve for time. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to solve for that exposure time in seconds. So we're going to take 250 divided by 75. 250 does not go into 75, so we're going to add a 0. 250 can go into 753 times. 3 times 250 is 750. So our answer in seconds is 0.3 seconds. But the question wants the answer in milliseconds. So we need to go one step further, and we need to convert seconds to milliseconds. So we can either do that by long multiplication. We'll take 1000 times 0.3. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 1 is 3. We don't need to worry about those zeros because it's all going to be 0. We need to resolve that one decimal place. So we're going to move the decimal place over, and that'll be 300 milliseconds. You can also just move the decimal place over. So we started with 0.3 seconds, move the decimal place over 3 times. So that would be 300. So our answer would be 300 milliseconds.